Number 25. Rex Harrison's performance in My Fair Lady has aged poorly. 37th Academy Awards 1965. Rex Harrison was a fine actor, but his performance in My Fair Lady didn't deserve the Oscar. That year's best performances came from Peter Sellers' multiple and now iconic roles in Dr. Strangelove, which clearly outshone the field in hindsight. Additionally, Beckett's two Oscar-nominated performances by Peter O'Toole and Richard Burton were leagues above Harrison's. The film hinges on the dynamic between the two, and their twin nominations split the vote. Today, few people care about Harrison's character, Henry Higgins, whose patronizing attitude and desire to turn a working-class woman into a presentable member of society has not aged well. In addition, the movie's decision to cast Audrey Hepburn as Eliza Doolittle instead of Julie Andrews, who had performed the role on Broadway, is still infamous. It's baffling how quickly easy fares like My Fair Lady can receive critical acclaim at the time, then fall by the wayside shortly thereafter. Number 24. Gary Oldman's Winston Churchill feels by the numbers. In retrospect to 90th Academy Awards 2018, Gary Oldman is best known for his immersive acting. His turn as Winston Churchill in Darkest Hour was undoubtedly the strongest performance of his entire career, but it wasn't the best of its year. To detractors, Oldman just rehashed his cliched shtick of overacting and yelling over everybody, turning Winston Churchill into a dusty history lesson. Darkest Hour also felt like it was yet another World War II-era drama engineered specifically to appease the Academy's voters. The fact that the Academy chose Oldman over Daniel Kaluuya's breakout performance in Get Out, and what may very well be Daniel Day-Lewis's final movie in The Phantom, didn't help Darkest Hour's reputation as another by-the-numbers Hollywood historical drama. Number 23. Out of Africa is Beautiful Imagery. In Search of a Story, with Sidney Pollack directing Meryl Streep and Robert Redford. Out of Africa seemingly had the right ingredients for an Oscar-worthy picture. Sure enough, it went home with the lion's share of wins, including Best Picture. Unfortunately, it was a soporific movie about two white people's romance in Kenya, stretched across a bloated runtime and saddled with a mediocre performance from the normally more engaged Redford. Even today, it seems incomprehensible that Out of Africa beat Steven Spielberg's The Color Purple. At the time, the Academy considered Spielberg a cinematic lightweight. If the Academy wanted to reward Pollack, they should have done so for Tootsie in 1983. Out of Africa was also accused of robbing After Hours, Back to the Future, and Rand's Oscar chances, among others. Number 22. Argo is a win for Ben Affleck, but not the Best Picture caliber. 85th Academy Awards 2013 Argo retold the Iranian hostage crisis of 1979 as a sensationalist blockbuster. The crisis was used for a by-the-numbers cross of a heist and escape movie. It's not that this historical incident wasn't worth remembering. There was just nothing interesting about Argo's execution. In hindsight, Argo's Oscar campaign and victories are baffling. In an Oscars race featuring some of the best filmmakers of all time, it's a wonder that Argo was even nominated. It seemed as if the Academy let Argo win as a consolation prize for snubbing director, star Ben Affleck in the past. Number 21. Rocky is fun, but a cinematic lightweight 49th Academy Awards? 1977 Rocky is a Philadelphia classic and a prime example of the underdog movie done right. However, Rocky paled in comparison to the movies of its era. Rocky became a classic franchise, but it's hard to deny that Rocky was an easy sports film that told viewers exactly how to feel. Rocky's competition, meanwhile, included the savage indictment of a corrupt president only 2 years out of office. The movie name was All the President's Men. It was a searing and prescient warning about the media network in Martin Scorsese's decade-defining masterpiece Taxi Driver. Meanwhile, Rocky is an upbeat boxing movie, but doesn't aspire to more than a feel-good crowd-pleaser. It could also be argued that Rocky was outdone by its legacy sequels, Rocky Balboa, as well as the Creed film series. Number 20. Forrest Gump denies history in favor of platitudes. 67th Academy Awards 1995. The rate to Best Picture for 67th Academy Awards was one of the best in its history. Many observers thought that the counterculture phenomenon Pulp Fiction or the emotionally rousing Stephen King adaptation, The Shawshank Redemption, would win. Instead, the idyllic and saccharine historical drama Forrest Gump won. Modern viewers were more annoyed than charmed by Forrest's naivete. What's more, Forrest Gump was an unchallenging melodrama that seemingly affirmed a conservative and self-centered view of American history. The main character is lionized for remaining unchanged and unchanging in the wake of profound circumstances. Unlike its Best Picture rivals, the story and execution of the Forrest Gump left a lot to be desired, and in a year so full of strong contenders, its victory looks all the more wrong-headed in retrospect. Number 19. Chariots of Fire Can't Outrun Its Competition. 54th Academy Awards, 1982. Movie historians point to Chariots of Fire's victory as one of the Academy's biggest missed opportunities. While it wasn't horrible, Chariots of Fire was a formulaic and predictably feel-good sports movie. Despite its lack of daring creativity and originality, Chariots of Fire bested the watershed blockbuster Raiders of the Lost Ark. Chariots of Fire's victory was seen as the moment the Oscars permanently snubbed groundbreaking genre movies in favor of mediocre period dramas. Today, Chariots of Fire is only remembered for its cheesy theme and an oft-mocked running scene. Raiders of the Lost Ark, conversely, changed pop culture forever. It's hardly a new story for the Academy, but it's rarely been more blatant than here. Number 18. How Green Was My Valley beat the greatest movie ever made 14th Academy Awards, 1942. Citizen Kane is universally hailed as one of the best movies of all time. Director star Orson Welles had a background in radio and straight up invented numerous filmmaking techniques that have since become standard. The Academy, however, thought differently, egged on by a smear campaign from newspaper mogul William Randolph Hearst, who correctly viewed it as a personal attack. In 1942, Orson Welles' masterpiece was shut out by the now vilified How Green Was My Valley. The movie was also humiliated during the ceremony, with people booing its mere mention. The John Ford potboiler is handsome and well shot, but badly dated and with nothing to say beyond a few easy platitudes. Number 17. The King's Speech is exactly as dull as it sounds. 83rd Academy Awards, 2011. Today, The King's Speech is only remembered for how forgettable it is. The historical drama about King George V overcoming his speech impediment in time for World War II wasn't terrible. However, it paled when contrasted with its more daring competition. Adding to the vitriol was how the King's Speech seemed cynically designed to win Oscars. As far as detractors were concerned, the Academy still favored self-important dramas that mainstream viewers didn't care for. This was despite the criteria for Best Picture nominees being changed following the Reader's debacle, and it may have led to one of the worst movies of all time. The King's Speech director Tom Hooper developed a reputation as an Oscar-caliber filmmaker, both here and with his follow-up Les Miserables, which netted Anne Hathaway an Oscar and Hugh Jackman a nomination. That in turn led to Cats, an unmitigated disaster whose stench may last far longer than the King's Speech's Oscar glow did. Number 16. The Reader was designed solely to give Kate Winslet an Oscar 81st Academy Awards. 2009 and 2009, Kate Winslet won the Oscar for Best Actress. This was controversial not just because of Winslet's character, an illiterate Nazi, but because The Reader reinforced the accusations of the Academy's snobbery. Worse, Winslet's win was so calculated that she joked about pandering to the Oscars on extras shortly before. The film itself seems to be geared specifically so she could win, and it's far from the only one to do so. The Reader was a period romance between a man and a former Nazi death camp guard. By nominating The Reader for Best Picture, the Academy shut out genre game-changers like The Dark Knight and Pixar's animated masterpiece, Wall-E. This caused such an uproar that the rules for Best Picture nominees were changed. Number 15. Brave beats superior competition on pedigree alone. 85th Academy Awards 2013. The Oscar for Best Animated Feature has been accused of being reserved for Disney and/or Pixar movies. In 2012, Brave seemingly proved this point. Brave was mediocre by Pixar standards, and yet it won. In terms of animation and storytelling, Brave was as by the numbers as a predictably Oscar-winning animated movie could be. Conversely, Frankenweenie, Paranorman, The Pirates, Band of Misfits pushed stop-motion animation to the next level, as well as adopting sharp and unconventional narratives, while Wreck-It Ralph was praised for its unique spin on video game movies. Ironically, Brave's only noteworthy cultural footprint was Merida's cameo in Ralph Breaks the Internet. Otherwise, it's a definitive also ran among Disney princess movies and was given the Oscar for no other reason than its pedigree. Number 14. Life of Pi has become a poster child for effects house exploitation. 85th Academy Awards 2013. On its own, Life of Pi is a good adaptation of Yann Martel's book, and indeed, director Ang Lee won the Best Director Oscar for effectively delivering what many felt was an unfilmable narrative. It was notable for one of the few times the award has gone to someone other than a white man. The controversy stemmed from how it was made, at whose expense. Life of Pi was praised for its cutting-edge visual effects and earned more than $600 million worldwide. Despite these, its effects studio, Rhythm, and Hughes Studios filed for bankruptcy after the movie's release. Ang Lee left out the visual effects artists during his Best Director's acceptance speech. Worse, visual effects supervisor Bill Westenhofer's winning speech was cut off when he called for better work conditions. Life of Pi is now seen as one of the worst instances of Hollywood's disdain for visual effects artists. Number 13. King Richard is eclipsed by the Will Smith controversy, 94th Academy Awards 2022. King Richard is an inoffensive sports biopic. However, its Oscar became controversial when Best Actor winner Will Smith slapped presenter Chris Rock after he made a rude joke about his wife. Whether they defended Smith's actions or not, viewers agreed that this tarnished an otherwise safe movie's legacy. The incident overshadowed King Richard in the already controversial 94th Academy Awards. The most controversial aspect was the Academy's and industry's disproportionate response towards Smith. The Oscar-winning actor was effectively blacklisted, despite worse people than Smith still being allowed to work freely. Whatever the film's merits and the performances, they have been lost in the wake of the scandal. Number 12. Manchester by the Sea was overshadowed by accusations against its star 89th Academy Awards. 2017 Manchester by the Sea was seen as Casey Affleck's breakout performance. The movie won him tons of praise and awards, ultimately leading to his Oscar for Best Actor. However, these were nullified almost immediately when his history of sexual harassment on the set of I'm Still Here resurfaced during the 2016 to 2017 Oscars race. Affleck's Oscar victory was criticized as yet another example of the industry ignoring male abusers' misdeeds. Manchester by the Sea is a good drama, but its association with Affleck overshadowed whatever merits it had. Affleck notably withdrew from presenting the Oscar for Best Actress at the 90th Academy Awards following the backlash. Number 11. Shakespeare in Love exemplified Miramax's bad faith Oscar campaigns. 71st Academy Awards, 1999. In a vacuum, Shakespeare in Love was an inoffensive if disposable historical romance that reimagined William Shakespeare's love life as the inspiration for some of his greatest works. As the 71st Academy Awards big winner, however, the Shakespearean rom-com was a cynical ploy engineered to win Oscar trophies. Miramax's Harvey Weinstein became notorious for his take-no-prisoners approach to Oscar victories. Shakespeare in Love was the biggest beneficiary. From the moment it hit cinemas, Shakespeare in Love's producers launched a zealous Oscar campaign for it while smearing Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan. The underhanded tactics worked and were copied by other studios. In the long run, Shakespeare in Love's mediocrity was exposed, and whatever merits it had were nullified. Sadly, it wasn't the only time Weinstein's ploy succeeded, casting a stain on this entire era of Oscar history. Number 10. American Beauty reflects shallow entitlement and a disgraced star, 72nd Academy Awards 2000. The best that could be said about American Beauty is that it's a product of its time. Detractors felt that a middle-aged and well-to-do man's midlife crisis didn't deserve a whole movie, let alone Oscars. While it was seen as relatable in 2000, depicting suburbia as a banal nightmare, the movie now feels entitled and out of touch. The real controversy, however, stemmed from its Best Actor win. In 2017, Kevin Spacey was accused of sexually assaulting and harassing minors. Given Hollywood's history of enabling or covering up such abusers, Spacey's celebrity and legacy were re-examined. American Beauty aged the worst, especially because Spacey's character became infatuated with his teenage daughter's friend. Number 9. Bohemian Rhapsody has editing issues and worse. 91st Academy Awards. 2019 Bohemian Rhapsody's nominations and wins drew tons of criticism, especially its Best Editing win. Many singled out and mocked the film's over-reliance on snappy cuts. Editor John Ottman has since apologized, admitting that Bohemian Rhapsody was not his best work. Additionally, the choice to lip-sync Freddie Mercury's vocals polarized viewers. However, these weren't the biggest controversies surrounding the Oscar-winning biopic. During Bohemian Rhapsody's production, director Bryan Singer was fired for being noticeably absent from shooting days. During the very same week that Singer was let go, several suits were filed that accused him of sexual assault. Ottman notably didn't mention Singer in his acceptance speech, despite working with him as editor and music composer for the live-action X-Men movies and The Usual Suspects, among others. The film's other Academy Award winners, including star Rami Malek, similarly stayed silent about Singer in their acceptance speeches. Number 8. The Pianist is tarnished by its fugitive director. 75th Academy Awards, 2003. Ever since it won in 2003, The Pianist was mired in controversy for reasons beyond its quality. Issues include insufferable method acting by Adrian Brody, the subject matter which more critical detractors saw as pandering to the Academy, and everything about director Roman Polanski, whose troubling behavior stretches back decades. Polanski won Best Director despite his history of sexual assault and worse. Notably, he didn't attend the ceremony in Hollywood, Los Angeles because he faced and continues to face arrest if he entered the U.S. People have criticized the Oscars for giving Best Director to The Pianist, especially after the Me Too movement. Many believe the award should have gone to Peter Jackson for The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. The movie was a huge hit, but Jackson didn't even get a nomination. Instead, Roman Polanski won for The Pianist, but he wasn't there to accept it because he was afraid of being arrested. Jackson had to wait another year to finally win. Number 7, Annie Hall isn't Star Wars, even without Woody Allen's controversies. 50th Academy Awards, 1978. Even if you ignore Woody Allen's troubling past, Annie Hall hasn't aged well. What once felt like a fun, quirky love story now seems more like Allen feeling sorry for himself. He cast himself as Alvy Singer, a character who treats Annie poorly, and today it's clear that his behavior is more controlling than romantic. On top of that, Allen's real-life controversies make it hard to see Alvy as anything other than a version of himself. The film's Oscar win looks worse every year as people re-examine both the movie and the man behind it. And let's not forget the biggest mistake of all, Star Wars. A New Hope was right there, but the Academy ignored it just because it was too popular. 5 decades later, there's no debate. Star Wars was the real game changer, and Annie Hall just doesn't hold up. Number 6, Dances with Wolves will never be forgiven for beating Goodfellas. 63rd Academy Awards, 1991. In 1990, Dances with Wolves was heralded as a progressive blockbuster that finally gave Indigenous Americans, specifically the Lakota people, their due. Time, however, was not kind. The movie was mocked for its massive runtime and criticized for its patronizing story about a white man discovering himself by learning from benevolent POC. Dances with Wolves wasn't the worst movie of its kind, but its history as director star Kevin Costner's vanity project soured its retroactive reputation. Costner's subsequent work behind the camera hasn't helped, becoming similarly mired in ponderous self-importances. That said, many cinephiles really hate Dances with Wolves for stealing the thunder of a more deserving movie, Martin Scorsese's mobster epic Goodfellas, which is now considered one of the director's masterpieces. Number 5. The Iron Lady whitewashes Margaret Thatcher's legacy. 84th Academy Awards, 2012. Meryl Streep is undoubtedly one of the best actors in history, Her seemingly bottomless list of Oscar nominations and wins proves this. However, her victory for portraying Margaret Thatcher was lambasted. Besides Streep having roles that better deserved the Oscar, the Iron Lady was criticized for whitewashing the controversial prime minister. The Iron Lady could be viewed as Thatcher's self-aggrandizing romanticization of what really happened during her tenure, but it still painted her and her hateful policies as misunderstood or necessary. Streep gave yet another powerful performance, but even her biggest fans wish she didn't exert such passion for a transparent puff piece. With two Oscars already on her shelves, there were plenty of stronger performances that year to give the award to. Number 4, Crash benefited from open homophobia. 78th Academy Awards 2006. Even when it won 3 of 6 Oscar nominations in 2006, Crash was a controversial and despised winner. The ensemble drama tackled discrimination patronizingly and even had the gall to depict an openly racist police officer as the most sympathetic character. In brief, Crash's themes amounted to racism exists. In the years since, and especially in light of anti-racism movements and demands for police reform, Crash has been routinely deemed one of, if not the worst, Oscar winners of all time. Crash's stars rarely talk about the film, and director Paul Haggis expressed regret over his movie's victory. As is often the case, a far better film was left waiting in the wings. Ang Lee's Brokeback Mountain was a watershed for LGBT plus representation on screen, and the powerful love story looked like a favorite for Best Picture. It was slighted for barely disguised homophobic reasons, making the Academy's pandering to Crash feel all the more calculated and phony. Number 3. Green Book offers simplistic answers to racism. 91st Academy Awards 2019. Black Panther was 2018's biggest blockbuster and a great step forward for Black representation. Many thought it was an obvious Best Picture winner, as was Spike Lee's BlacKkKlansman, which netted the celebrated filmmaker his first Oscar of any kind in the Best Screenplay category. Best Picture, unfortunately, went to the conservative Green Book. Besides being another Oscar snub against genre movies, Green Book was a Jim Crow-era biopic told from a white man's perspective. In light of demands for racial justice, Chadwick Boseman's passing, Black Panther's enduring legacy, backlash from Dr. Don Shirley's family, and revelations of director Peter Farrelly's past sexual indecency, Green Book fell from grace just months after its big night. Number 2. Driving Miss Daisy has devolved into a punchline. While not unwatchable, Driving Miss Daisy's win was very out of touch. At best, Driving Miss Daisy was a safe feel-good movie that reassured viewers with platitudes. At worst, the movie clearly pandered to a very specific audience who had a very limited view of race relations in the United States. Either way, it approaches the issue with remarkable toothlessness, reducing centuries of struggle and progress to an old lady bickering with her chauffeur. Driving Miss Daisy's competition outshone it. That included Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, speaking to a modern America where racism hasn't gone anywhere, and Glory, which centers on a white protagonist, but certainly had a better understanding of America's dark racial history and reality. Neither film was nominated for Best Picture. Similarly, Field of Dreams was the more charming feel-good movie, which has stood the test of time far better. Today, Driving Miss Daisy is only remembered as a joke. Number 1. Gone with the Wind is Confederate revisionism. Gone with the Wind is more apologia for the Confederate States of America than a respectful historical epic. This critical sentiment was aired as far back as 1939, when Gone with the Wind first hit theaters. Despite this backlash, Gone with the Wind dominated the 1940 Oscars and became a cultural touchstone. Gone with the Wind was lambasted for glorifying the myth of the Confederacy's lost cause. Worse, the damage has already been done. Whether the filmmakers intended it or not, Gone with the Wind helped romanticize the Confederacy's history while also whitewashing the dark truths of slavery. And as is so often the case, it did so at the expense of far more worthy films. 1939 is widely regarded as one of the greatest years in terms of quality films in history, with nominees including John Ford's groundbreaking Western Stagecoach, the Bette Davis drama Dark Victory, the Jimmy Stewart political fable, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and of course, The Wizard of Oz, which remains one of the most beloved movies of all time. Against that, Gone with the Wind feels like a calcified relic, even without its deeply problematic content.